So this video today, we're going to be talking about kind of what you can do if you find yourself in the challenging place of dealing with a new illness, a new injury, something that is more long-standing, right? Things are taking longer to get better than you thought. Maybe you've got an injury or an illness or something that's happening where it's either going to be chronic or, it's just you're going to have to change your life in some way in order to be able to kind of function with whatever it is that you're dealing with. I have learned a lot over the last couple years about how many people are actually dealing with these sort of issues, and how difficult it is too, having been through this situation myself. And I wanted to just share some things with you today that I thought might be helpful with you on your journey, or if you're just really in a place where you just find like you're really struggling. Because this is not an easy situation. It's very difficult. Sometimes we don't always have the support we need. There's a lot of different things going on that can make this really challenging and make us feel really isolated and frustrated and angry while we're trying to do this. So the first thing that I learned that's really important, which I hated getting this advice, so you might hate that I'm giving it to you, but I think acceptance is a really big part. It's the first part that you're going to need in order to kind of move forward with the rest of this train, right? And acceptance doesn't necessarily mean giving up. It just means I accept the terms of things as is, right? And it might be different than it was, and it could be different in the future. But right now, this is the level of the playing field that I'm at. I accept that this is where I'm at. And then from there, you can figure out, well, what can I do at this level, right? I think when we get stuck in a mental place of like, oh, but I used to be able to do this, or I really want to do that, it distracts us and it agitates us and it creates all these more intense feelings that are not necessarily positive and they're not necessarily helpful. I think, of course, you should always process all the emotions that you have for a situation. You shouldn't put anything under the rug or try to be puppies, kittens, and rainbows if you're having a bad day. Don't do that. But I also think sitting in that space is going to prevent you from moving forward, and you don't ever want to be in a place where you are feeling stuck, right? Or hopeless too, right? Once we can't find that forward movement anymore, we do start feeling like, well, we want to give up. And I think that we can move a lot more than we think we can in the situations that we have, right? So we have to take advantage of things in a different way and look at stuff from a different perspective. If you can accept as is, I think the next, some other things that you could do that will help you. I'm a big fan of therapy. I know some people are like, I don't need to shrink. But the therapy too, if you've never been, I know there's a lot of preconceived notions about what therapy is and what it does. But, therapists know how your brain works, how it processes information. They know about how your emotions come up in your body and how to work with those so you're not fighting them all the time, right? And to get to a place where you have more power and control over them instead of them just like coming up and just, pushing you around. So I think that's always a really good thing too. Sometimes you just need someone to talk to that, is an impartial third party that is not going to judge you, that's not going to make you feel bad about things. It's going to kind of really be like, hey, look at all the stuff you have done. Or what if you look at it from this perspective, it's kind of having that good angel sitting on your shoulder, right? They really will kind of help you navigate through things. Another thing too is that I think is really helpful is you have to find a group of like-minded people who are either going through the same thing, who can relate to you on like a separate but kind of equal level, right? Because one of the things that I find too, and that I found personally, is it's really hard when you feel alone. When you feel like you're the only one that's going through this, where you don't have that outside support to help you, right? To encourage you to keep going, or they try, but they're doing it in a way that is not what you need, because maybe that's something that they just can't do within their parameters of who they are, right? And that's not a bad thing, but I really think that having people who understand you or have had a similar experience, or even one thing that you are dealing with that someone else is dealing with, whether it's even just like, oh, I'm so tired all the time, to have somebody else be like, oh, I'm tired all the time too. I have problems with this. You're like, I have problems with that. And that connection is going to help pull you through that. Because one, it's nice to know you're not alone, but two, sometimes these people have some really great tips or some really great information, or sometimes they just say something that really encourages you or lights that fire under your butt, or gives you the strength to keep going for one more day, right? Or get through the next test or the next, surgery or the next whatever it is that you're going through, right? Or just even helping you, if you're in pain, having somebody to help talk you through that in that moment, that is helpful for the distraction. So finding a community group or even maybe a therapy group or something, I think is really going to help you manage whatever it is that you're dealing with. The last thing I think that's really important, and it's something that is difficult to do, but you have to really be creative with it, and it does help. It's really trying to figure out how to take back control of the situation. Because I think a lot of times when we are in difficult spaces like this, especially if it's like with our health, whether that's physical, emotional, mental, whatever's going on there, it's a tough place to be. It feels really dark sometimes. And sometimes the stuff that we have to do in order to keep moving, even just on a regular day-to-day basis, we have to do things differently than other people. And sometimes that's harder, it's embarrassing. We don't want people staring at us. We just want to shrink and hide away. You can't do that. You have to keep going. So how do you keep going, or how do you manage the difficult things and make them kind of your bitch, right? Like, how do we do that? How do we take charge of stuff? And I think that's a really important thing too, because it makes you feel like you are in more control of the situation than you are, right? It's sort of like, don't let that situation take over. You take over, right? How do you work with it? So maybe you need a cane or a walking stick because you've got some stuff going on, and you need a little extra stability when you're out and about, and you're really embarrassed by it, right? Maybe you have a nervous twitch, maybe you have a limp, maybe like something happens that you're embarrassed for other people to see. So what do? Like, maybe you take that cane or that walking stick and you make it something really cool instead of some just janky whatever walking stick, right? Like, get that pimp walking stick and walk around like you own the place, right? Like it's a part of like your outfit and not something that you need, right? Like, so then it's your choice to use it, and it's not necessarily like, well, I'm being forced to use this because I have this issue that I need it from, right? Or how can you make certain things more fun? What element can you add in there to really try to enjoy it more when it's difficult? And I know this is probably going to be kind of a controversial one, because I know a lot of people are in a place where they don't want to see that, or they can't see that, or it's hard. And that's okay. And sometimes it's difficult, but ask your friends. I have friends, when I've been in these places, they always give me really great advice about things. And that's been really helpful, to kind of change your perspective and be like, well, why don't you just do this? Or, hey, this would make that more fun. Or, whatever it is that you want to do, and do whatever you want. Make it weird, make it crazy. It doesn't matter. It's your shit. Have a good time, but whatever it is that makes you feel better about it, that makes you, I guess, feel kind of less obvious, is kind of the message that I'm getting, right? I think a lot of times too, when we have a lot of issues with ourselves, whether it's physically or emotionally or mentally, it comes out and it presents in certain ways, and people can see that, right? Because it's not the same as everybody else. And so then it's, then we feel like we're sticking out like a sore thumb and everybody's staring at us. And some people might be, and some people might not. And some people might be staring at you in a good way, and some people might be staring at you in a really judgmental way. But that's not your issue. That's their issue. You need to do what you need to do to feel good about where you are at, right? Accepting that level of where you're at, and doing what you need to in order to be able to move forward, right? Because we all deserve to move forward. And sometimes that looks different for different people. Some people, it's easier. And I think sometimes that's hard to watch, but if you compare yourself to what everyone else is doing, you're probably always going to be able to pick yourself apart. So just compare yourself to the best that you can do with what you have at that moment, at that day. So I hope that was helpful for you, or it gives you a different perspective if you're just kind of going through a hard time right now. I've been through hard times. I'm going through hard times. So I really understand where everybody's at. So I do have a lot of empathy for everyone in that situation. So if you have any comments or other suggestions, or you want to share something that works for you, if you want to share a win, right? Like, I love wins. Wins Sharing wins is always a really good way to put things into perspective and focus on the things that are positively moving forward, even if it's 2%, right? 2% is still 2% and it's still forward movement. And so sometimes I think you have to cheer yourself on for those moments, and celebrate yourself, even if no one else will celebrate or acknowledge you for those, because they're important, right? It's important. So until next time, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a beautiful day.